Welcome everyone to Discover This. Today we're going to take a little time and talk about the very short life and very tragic death of Heather O'Rourke. You may remember her as the little girl from the Poltergeist movies, but she was in a number of other TV shows and things that we'll bring up as we go along with this video. What a lot of people don't realize is that she was born and she died in San Diego County. So let's get started. Heather Michelle O'Rourke was born on December 27th, 1975 here at Kaiser Hospital in San Diego. Her parents were Michael O'Rourke and Kathleen Rasmussen. And after she was born here, her parents took her to the family home in Santee. So Heather O'Rourke and her family lived here at 9316 Stoyer Drive in Santee. Other family lived nearby and there were parks for the kids to play in. Heather's sister Tammy went to school just a couple blocks away. They really enjoyed their time here in Santee. Tammy liked to dance and perform and was in a number of local productions, but she wanted to branch out to bigger and better productions. So that meant going to LA. And Kathleen would take the girls to LA so Tammy could do tryouts and auditions. Tammy ended up getting a regular role on the Tim Conway Show, which led to appearances in the movie Pennies from Heaven and Annie. But this was the family home when Heather was born and where they lived for a number of years. This park in Santee is one of the ones that Heather and her family would come to play, you know, with all the neighborhood kids and Tammy's school friends and the family that lived in the area. It's just a few blocks down from their house. Now, this wasn't called Mass Park when they were living here. This was just a county park. The city of Santee did not incorporate until 1980. And this park wasn't called Mass Park until 1982, but it was just a county park. But they enjoyed their time here. So during this time, they were driving back and forth from Santee to Los Angeles and back. Each time Tammy had to be in LA for one of her auditions or performance. Heather, even though she was only around 4, seemed interested in acting. She had been in advertisements for Mattel Barbie dolls and also appeared in commercials for McDonald's and Long John Silver's. While filming Pennies from Heaven, Tammy, Heather, and their mom Kathleen would often eat in the studio commissary. One day Heather was approached by Steven Spielberg and one thing led to another, and Heather ended up auditioning for Poltergeist. She auditioned by having a scream test. Filming for Poltergeist started in spring of 1981, around the same time that Tammy was filming Annie. By the time Poltergeist filming was underway, Heather had already appeared in an episode of Fantasy Island. This was a difficult time for the family. Very grueling schedule and all that, the travel from San Diego up to the LA Anaheim area. Kathleen and the girls were staying mostly in the LA Anaheim area, and they ended up moving to a mobile home park in Anaheim, very close to Disneyland. And Kathleen and Michael ended up divorcing during this time. In the fall of 1982, Heather got a reoccurring role on Happy Days as the daughter of actress Linda Pearl, who played the TV girlfriend of the Fonz, actor Henry Winkler. She also made an appearance on an episode of Chips. She was also in an episode of Webster. She was in an episode of Matt Houston, among many other shows during this time. So they lived at the mobile home park in Anaheim for about 3 years. Tammy retired from acting in 1983, and in 1984, Mom Kathleen had met a new man who also lived in the mobile home park. Later in 1984, they all decided to move from Anaheim to Big Bear. They lived there for 3 years while the girls were going to school, and they enjoyed many outdoor activities like skiing and hiking and things like that. Heather started filming Poltergeist 2 while living in Big Bear. And then with Poltergeist 2 done and having done well at the box office, plans for Poltergeist 3 started. That's when Heather found out Poltergeist 3 would be filming in Chicago. So shortly before pre-production for Poltergeist 3, Heather started becoming ill with flu-like symptoms. Things got so much worse that Kathleen drove Heather all the way to San Diego so she could be seen by her regular doctors. They initially blamed the flu and treated it like that and told Kathleen to bring her back if she didn't get better. Well, she didn't get better, so Kathleen drove her back to San Diego. This time they felt maybe it was an insect or spider bite. She still didn't get any better with that medication, so Kathleen drove her back to San Diego again, and this time Heather was admitted to the hospital. The same one she was born in, right here, Kaiser. And they did lab tests, and this time it showed that she had an intestinal infection, common in mountain and wilderness areas, usually caused by drinking untreated water. However, no one else in the family had any of the same symptoms. So Kathleen took Heather back and forth to San Diego a few more times for follow-ups before filming in Chicago started. Now, the doctors believed that Heather was in the early stages of Crohn's disease, and she started medications for that as she went to Chicago. Also, just before leaving for Chicago, the family decided they would move back to San Diego County so they could be closer to family and their neighborhood friends. So with filming on Poltergeist 3 done, the family ended up moving to Lakeside, which is right next door to Santee. You know, they kind of wanted to move back to Santee to be closer to family and things like that, but what they could find was in Lakeside. So they moved here. In September of 1987, Heather started 7th grade here at Tierra del Sol Middle School in Lakeside. It's about a mile down from where they were living in Lakeside at the Julian Apartments. From all accounts, including her own, she really enjoyed what ended up being a short time here. But she was making new friends and had a good time at this school. On Friday, January 29th, 1988, Heather mentioned to her sister Tammy that she didn't feel well and didn't want to go to PE class. She eventually did, but on Saturday she spent most of the day just lying around the house. On Sunday, January 31st, the family woke to the sounds of Heather being sick. She eventually crawled into bed with her mother and stepfather, and she spent the rest of the day Sunday resting. On Monday, February 1st, Heather said she was okay and was planning to go to school. Her mother gave her some toast, and a few minutes later noticed Heather was having difficulty eating, and Heather said she couldn't swallow. She noticed Heather's face was getting pale, and her hands were cold, and her fingers were turning bluish. So Kathleen called the hospital, and they said bring her in right away. As they were getting ready to go, Heather collapsed on the floor. So they called 911, and an ambulance came and took Heather and her mom to the closest hospital. While en route to the hospital, Heather went into cardiac arrest. So Heather was brought here to what was the old El Cajon Valley Hospital on East Main, almost at Greenfield. But the doctors and nurses were waiting, and after a few minutes they were able to resuscitate her and get her vital signs back, even after the cardiac arrest in the ambulance. But they called for life flight so they could helicopter her to Children's Hospital in San Diego. So Heather arrived here at Children's Hospital in San Diego, 8001 Frost Street, in critical condition. She was unconscious and unresponsive, and the doctors prepared her for surgery and told Kathleen, her mom, that there was the possibility of brain damage due to the cardiac arrest in the ambulance. So while doing surgery, doctors found that Heather had an infected intestinal obstruction that had burst and spread the infection to her abdomen and bloodstream. So surgery went on. It was a somewhat normal operation, but Heather's mother was informed that because of all the infection, there was the possibility that Heather wouldn't survive. Surgery was completed, but Heather did not improve. She never regained consciousness, and as feared, there was no brain activity. And doctors tried all they could do to resuscitate her, but at 2:43 p.m., Heather passed away. She was 12 years old. Now this is the old children's hospital. The new one is around the corner. It's a big, tall, modern building, but this is where she was life flighted to. So Heather's funeral was held on Thursday, February 4th, 1988, here at the Lakeside Santee Funeral Chapel. And this is at Main and Parkside in Lakeside. This is now a Montessori school, but at the time it was the Lakeside Santee Funeral Chapel. And after her service here, her casket was taken up to LA, and she was interred on Friday, February 5th at Westwood Memorial Park. And Henry Winkler was one of her pallbearers. So this is the school that Tammy O'Rourke went to, Carlton Hills Elementary. But after Heather's funeral, Mom Kathleen filed a lawsuit against Heather's doctors and the hospital, specifically Kaiser, where she was misdiagnosed all those years, and they ended up settling out of court. You know, unfortunately, what she ended up having could have been corrected very early on, right after she was born, via surgery. So anyway, she went through a lot of treatments and things that were completely unnecessary, including the Crohn's disease diagnosis. You'll notice in some of the Poltergeist 3 photos and video that Heather's face is really puffy and things like that. That's from the Crohn's treatment that she didn't need. So that's the story of Heather's very short life. Really sad how it turned out. Very unfortunate. But I appreciate you watching. I really thank you for checking these videos out. We have a lot more coming on various topics, some more popular than others, I know, but we're going to do them anyway. And we will see you next time on Discover This.